looking back at the world from another level, you know what I mean? Still. Multiple gunshots to the block, the bus stops. Niggas was calling cops, people shot, nobody stopped. I wonder when the world stopped. Cameron last night, 2 kids shot while the whole block staring. I will never understand this society. But they try to murder me, then they lie to me. Brought a cup of John Bree, all my homies try weed. Now the little baby's crazy, raised up in the sea. Tell me when my enemies flee, when they see me. Believe me.
Welcome to the UI experience. Welcome to the UI experience.
Good afternoon, urban intellectuals, and those out there in radio land that's listening to our show. This is yours truly, Jalal Tariq, with the latest edition of Real Talk with Jalal Tariq. Real talk for real people with real problems. And before we jump off into this Freestyle Free-for-All Friday, as usual, I want to encourage everyone to support us in our efforts and go to urbanintellectuals.com/members, and for the low price of $24, you can become a card-carrying member of Urban Intellectuals, or you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate and give to your heart's content. I want to make one change to that, though, because now urbanintellectuals.org, our nonprofit site, is up and running, so you can also go to urbanintellectuals.org and contribute to the cause in that manner. I'm quite sure that the directions are actually on the page. I haven't had time to look at the site yet, but I know it exists. I have it on good authority that exists. So go over there, give money, support us in our cause, because we're taking over the world.
That's right.
Free for All Friday. I got a couple of things I want to talk about today. But first and foremost, I want to introduce my 2 co-hosts today. My usual partners in consciousness are unavailable today, but sitting in quite admirably, I have Gabrielle Herrard, regular friend of the show.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And today I also have my brother Lamont, who came out of the woodwork.
A.K.A. Barack Obama. But
A.K.A. Barack Obama. Just call him Bo.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well,
We finally opened up his cell and let him out, so he's going.
It's a dangerous thing.
Dangerous thing, contributing to our conversation. Okay. Y'all know how we do it on Free for All Friday. If you haven't been involved, I'm quite sure that a lot of people have listened on Fridays. We don't have a set structure on Fridays. We don't have a list of topics or things that, we want to necessarily talk about, but, it's whatever comes into our heads, or if I see something online or something in the news or something I want to talk about, then we'll deal with that. Topic number 1, let me tell y'all about what happened to me today. I don't know how many people actually listen to me or read what I write in the books, whatever, but if you do, I'm quite sure that you are now aware that I live in the burbs. And when I say in the burbs, I mean I live in the burbs like they write them articles in the New York Times and Atlantic Money. I mean I live in the burbs. The archetypical, stereotypical, cookie-cutter, every house look the same type suburbs. This is where back in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, these are the parts of town that our parents worked their whole life to come out here and buy house-type suburbs surrounded by white people. Anyway, my 8-year-old, even though I have been resisting it for years and years and years and years, he gave me the puppy dog look and, actually gave it to his mama, and his mama roped me into this nonsense. Well, I ain't going to say that. His mama roped me into this. Today they had a veterans commemoration ceremony at the school. So they sent out these little questionnaires to the kids, and they told the kids, hey, if your parents, one of your parents or both of your parents are veterans, invite them to the school on this day, and we're going to, have this ceremony. We're going to give them these certificates and yada, 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 rah, 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 woo, woo, woo. Now, let me preface that to say that I have been ducking my son's school like the plague. I've been ducking his school like people duck Ebola. Not because, his school is nice. It's nicer than any school I ever went to in my life. You know what I mean? But because I duck his school because for every 10 students there, 9 of them are white, 1 of them are black. He goes to one of those type schools. And, my son he's like me. He's gregarious. He's outgoing. He's, very well spoken for his age. He's not a bad kid at all. Everybody loves my son. My son is one of them type, kids that I have to keep my eye on his teachers because his teachers talk about him like, they would be pedophilish if, I wasn't going to kill him. It's one of them types. They love my kid. Let's put it like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He gave Mama the puppy dog eyes, roped me into going up here for this thing. So I mean, I had to get up and actually put on some clothes today because, I usually don't put on clothes before I go drop him off at school. Got on house shoes. Sometimes I got on my wife's pink house shoes. It's one of them types of
situations. We need a picture of that real soon.
Yeah.
Wow.
I goes up here to the school, sits up on the stage, and I'm looking around. And I am the only black male in this room of about 500 people. Well, I won't say the only black male. I'm the only black male above the age of 6th grade. What is that I hear in the background? Is that you, Lamont? Lamont, people chasing you again.
After you.
They're going by. I don't know what happened, but
Yeah, you don't know what happened. I bet. Anyway, you ain't in the bushes. Anyway, so I'm sitting up here. Like I said, I'm looking around, and there are a bunch of little black kids here, but there are no black adults except for the one old crabapple teacher that teaches at his school. That I deal with her on a different day. She's like I say, the stereotypical black teacher in a white school. She's just bitter for no reason at all. But that's the whole thing. But so I'm sitting here, and I'm listening to them go through this whole rigmarole about how much they thank us for our, service to this country. And, they told these long, flowing stories about some of the dudes that was up on the stage, about how, they ducked bullets and dived on hand grenades and all this bullshit. Get to my black ass, they ain't got nothing to say because I really didn't write nothing down for a bio other than, I was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. Yeah, that's it, that's all. So, in any event, so they start showing the slideshow. And I'm watching this because I'm watching how the kids, they got a horrible choir, too. Horrible choir.
I shouldn't talk about them kids
like that. But them kids,
wow.
Man, it was horrible. But, I got to call it like I see it. It is what it is. They horrible.
That's right. That's right.
They sang the Star Spangled Banner, America the Beautiful, and all the, all the patriotic songs. And, what's that song that Brad Paisley came out with a couple of years ago about America? I'm proud to be an American. I even sang that.
Oh, the redneck anthem?
Yeah, it had the little black kids up there singing that too. So I'm sitting here, my son bored, I'm bored. He looking at me, I'm looking at him. We tickling each other, trying to keep each other occupied till they get through with this long, drawn-out nonsense. So they get to the slideshow, and every last one of these images is some super tough white Army Ranger SEAL-type stud diving out of a helicopter with no, tow line and diving out of planes with no parachute. I mean, coming up out the water with, camouflage paint on their face and all this nonsense. And I'm looking around and I'm like, there ain't no Negroes in the service. They was just talking about Negroes being in the service just yesterday on CNN. Matter of fact, it's all good to call them Negroes again. You mean to tell me out of all these images that you people came up with, y'all could not find one single black serviceman out of all 4 of the service branches, as well as the Coast Guard. They even had some Coast Guard pictures up in there. No Negroes. No black folks. So I'm kind of hot about that, but I'm playing it off. I'm like, yeah, this is my kid, you know what I mean? He's proud of me, you know what I mean? He really don't know Daddy was biggest drug dealer at Camp Lejeune and Camp Pendleton, but that's a whole other story. You know, but he's proud that I was there, and I'm proud, you know, and I want to support my baby. You know, this is my kid. You know, it's the only boy I got that I know of and I claim.
Lord.
So my question, and I see a couple of other people that's jumped on the call as well, you know, and if either one of you are a veteran, I would hope that you would, you know, jump in there and give me what you think. My question is this. I went to the service at 17, enlisted in the Marine Corps at 17, you know, just to get out of, you know, Daddy's house, because my parents was like me, like I'm going to raise my kid. I tell my kid right now, son, you got 7-8 years to figure out what you want to do, because once you hit 18, once your 18th birthday roll around, dude, if you still in high school, you getting out my house. Because that's how we putting it down here. You know what I mean? That's what my parents taught me. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you 18 years old, bro, you going to the service, you going to college, you going to get you a job, an apartment, you getting the hell out of here. Because me and Mommy want to do some grown folk stuff without your ass being around.
I know that's right.
What I'm saying? So I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Me and a few of my friends, we all went together. It was like 9 of us from GI. All together, it was like 30 of us that came out of Chicago, and we was the worst, absolute worst platoon in boot camp. We stayed in trouble. We stayed on restriction of barracks. We stayed fighting. It was just, I mean, we was pulling burglaries in boot camp. Everybody go to sleep. All of the barracks were all connected. We was like sneaking in other barracks and stealing out of people's lockers. We was clowns, man. We was out there like that. But I thought to myself, here it is now, 35, 36 odd years later. If I had to do it all over again, would I go to the service? And with my son 10 years from now, say for instance he was 18 now, would I and would any of you advise your child to enlist in the armed services, knowing what you know now, being conscious like you are now? Would you send your child to fight for this country? I'll go with you for first.
First thing came to my mind was that scene in The Color Purple with Miss Sophia, when that mayor's wife wanted her to come and be her maid. First thing out her mouth was, hell no. And that's exactly how I feel about the military. For one, how can you send your son to protect the country that don't respect you? And then once you go over there and something happens, you come back and you can't even go to the hospital. You can't even go to the doctor and get treated the way you should be treated by being a veteran. I don't understand that. So, no, I can't see the benefit. I mean, you know, it might be some benefits in it as far as, paying for your schooling and whatnot. But other than that, I can't see it.
Well,
so, no.
Well, the naysayers, let me play devil's advocate. The naysayers will say that, they would say two things. One, this is your country. You was born here. You are an American. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is what it is. You bleed red, white, and blue, and apple pie and baseball and all that bullshit, right?
Right.
Second part thing they would say is that how can you in 2014 say that you wouldn't go fight for this country when in World War I and World War II and all the wars previous to that, black people didn't even have the right to vote. You see what I'm saying? And they still went over there and they still fought for this country. So how are you going to say in 2014 that you wouldn't go or you wouldn't send your child?
That's an interesting question. And, I always think about, what would make our people enlist and join, knowing the way the country felt about them back then, because it was blatant back then. Now it's little, remarks here and there, or action or two, or, you're in the elevator and, lady just, hugs her purse, so it's little subtle things. But back then, it was blatant. So what kind of mindset would have our people say, well, you know what, let me go fight for this country? So did they have something to prove? Did they want to show that, they're as patriotic as a white person? So, I would like to know the psyche of that myself. I'm intrigued on that, because I can't see it. It's 2014, and I see what's going on and what's happening to me in a subtle way, and I don't want to go. So why would they want to go and fight with people who don't even respect them or like them? And I was thinking about Dr. Ben's interview. And Dr. Ben said he was in the military, and when he got out, he was in charge of the prisoners of war. And one of the Germans called him over and said, nigger boy, when all of this is over, I'm going to be your boss. And he said that hit him the hardest, and he woke up. He was like, what am I doing? So, it had to be a deep mind game to get you to enlist in something that, they don't even want you a part of. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but, that's where I was going.
Gabrielle.
Okay. Well, first of all, my knowledge in this area is kind of limited. I've never served in the military. I have some friends that have served, and I think that it's kind of the same thing that happens with anything else. I mean, they can paint a really pretty picture of what you're going to gain by doing this. And this is not taken away from anybody who, has done their time in the services and who feels that has made them better as a person. And I, definitely can see how that can happen. But I think that they paint a very pretty picture. They come at you with we'll pay for your education. You'll get better job opportunities. You'll get better connected to people in high-ranking levels. It's just this pretty picture that they can paint for you. And to me, back in the day, before we had internet, before we had, broadcast television, before we had all of these mediums that we had, it was a lot easier to paint this rosy picture of what, being in the military would be like, because you didn't have anything else to kind of give you the real story. So I think that if a lot of our, our ancestors, if they, enlisted in the military, it was to gain some kind of status. It was because jobs obviously were not available. It's because opportunities were not available. It's because they were probably trying to escape poverty or, harsh conditions in their everyday life, and they felt that this was a step up. I mean, every time, if you were a person of color, particularly living in a very segregated area, you're going to do whatever you have to do to get some type of leg up. And to have that title behind your name or to have that position maybe gave them some idea that they would be respected in their communities more. They'd be respected more by the establishment. They'd be more likely to, get a better life for their families and, get that house that they wanted, put their kids through school and, receive some sort of additional benefit from it. But, of course, it was easy to fool people that way because you didn't actually get to see what it was really like. The movie that I think about, like I know you all probably saw that movie Dead Presidents that came out a while back with Lorenz Tate. And, his whole thing was, I'm tired of school. I don't want to go to college. I'm going to, enroll in the Marine Corps because I feel like this is what will make me a man. I remember there was that one scene where he said, to his father, you said that being in the military made a man out of you. So he had this expectation of what it would do for him and what it would do for his future. He gets over there in Vietnam War, deals with all kinds of horror, and then comes back broke, having to work in a butcher shop, getting laid off, and then having to, do a bank heist. So, that to me is a good example of what, typically would happen in this, in most of these cases. Maybe not all, but somebody paints you a rosy picture or gives you a perception of, being in the military and how it might elevate your status, but that's not always the case. So it's just like anything else. I mean, it's almost like people who think they can get drafted, in the NBA or in any other sport. You think that your life is going to be a certain way by, achieving this status, but that's not always the case. You deal with the harsh realities of it, and nobody really tells you about that.
Good point. And let me give y'all some history about this, about the situation, how it used to exist as far as black men in the Army or the armed forces in general used to be. My foster father served in World War II. My foster grandfather served in World War I, right? Mm-hmm. And I used to sit back, and my foster father was a Buffalo soldier out of Fort Huachuki or something like Huachuki out of New Mexico, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And that's where they trained the black regiments, the black infantry regiments. They trained them down there in the heart of the 100-degree desert or whatever. They didn't go to Fort Dix or Fort Leonard Wood or Fort Bragg and become, airborne, nothing like that. They sent them out there in the desert to train them because they, the whole purpose was to keep them behind the lines and whatever. But in any event, he told me that for him and a lot of the brothers that was like him, they went into the Army because they had a misplaced, idea in their mind of patriotism. That they thought that if they go over and they, serve and fight honorably for this country, that when they got back, maybe white people would start looking at them a little bit differently, because, there's a lot of white guys that came back from the service with their views changed on race relations because, a lot of them brothers saved their life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When it came time to liberate them white dudes from them prisoners of war camps, because they was killing the black prisoners. There was very few black prisoners of war. They was killing them. But they would take the white guys hostage or take the white guys prisoner to swap for, Germans that was caught and became prisoners of war of America. But the troops who liberated those prisoners of war camps and the troops that liberated the Jewish populace from the concentration camps that Hitler had set up were black people. They were black troops. A lot of the first, faces that they saw that wasn't German were black faces, and it changed how they felt about black people when they came back. So a lot of brothers thought that if I go to the service, we kill a few people, we support this country, maybe when we come back, they'll quit calling us niggas and they'll let us move out there with them. They told them, just like they told us 40 acres and a mule, they told them, GI Bill. When you get back, you can get a house, you send your kids to college, and to a certain extent, that was true for a few people. For the most part, most of the people who came back, they didn't get a chance to take advantage of the GI Bill for, one reason or another, And so when they got back, they found out that it was not a ticket to success in this society. Fast forward 60, 70-odd years to 2014, and one of the things I was looking at is when they was reading the bios of, the white dudes who was up here on the stage with me, that he was a colonel, and when he got out, he became executive vice president with Raytheon. This guy was, he retired as a senior master sergeant and came and he started an architectural firm, and this guy over here became a lawyer. This woman over here became a dentist. This woman did this. This woman did that. And like we was talking about before the show started, Gabrielle, like you had a friend that tested and going through the ACES system, where they basically they test you and evaluate you and see what would be the best MOS that you can go into. Military Occupational Specialty is what MOS stands for. A lot of us tested out to be, the top of the top, but we ended up with a rifle in our hands. I went to the Marine Corps to become a computer programmer because that's what my background is. That's what I graduated from technical school with, computer programming. I ended up being a services specialist.
I'm sorry. I was going to say my friend. He did the same thing. I mean, he was a computer programmer, and then they had him defusing bombs.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Talk about culture shift. But
I guess they didn't want him around for long. But hey.
But you know,
he
and
got out.
it's like what Lamont was saying. You know, you would think that you go into the military, you develop all of these long-lasting friendships and these, this, bond of brothers over blood and all this bullshit that they try and force down your throat when they trying to get you to enlist. When they come up to the high school and they dress uniforms and they talk all that shit about how it's just going to be great and it's just going to be wonderful. You go to the service, you'll learn this, you'll pay for your college, and it's not really like they say it is. The worst thing that you could ever do is enlist in the armed services at a time of war, especially if you black.
Absolutely.
We found that out in the Vietnam War. Now, my foster father was in World War II. My biological father was a Vietnam vet. He told me stories about Vietnam, about how brothers would go into the service, and after 5-6 weeks of basic training, you know what I mean, these dudes, they barely knew which end of the flight that the bullet actually came out of. They took them and just basically dropped them in the jungle, point them in a certain direction and said, anything you see over there that don't look like us, kill them.
Right.
They didn't give them no training about, the terrain. They didn't give them no training about, what they were going to face over there. They didn't tell them, say, hey, look, you got to be careful of this plant. You got to be careful of this type of booby trap, or you got to be careful of this type of, land formation or something, because that might be a swamp. That might be this. That might be that. You got to watch out for that snake. You got to watch out for that spider. They didn't teach them none of that shit.
All right. It was like 100 games.
Basically. They basically gave them a weapon, gave them some bullets, and said, go do your thing. And then, like you said, like Lamont said earlier, too, when you got back, out of every 9 brothers that I've run into in my life, and I've ran into quite a few of them, especially in prison, every last one of them that came back from Vietnam suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Every last one of them did.
Exactly.
Made reference to earlier as well. They came back. Some of them had bullet wounds. Some of them was missing fingers. Not because they had been shot off or, a landmine or grenade went off, but basically they get some kind of fungus. They was bringing back, diseases and all kinds of things that doctors overseas had never seen before, so that all they can do, the only remedy they had was to put your finger on. I knew dudes that was missing half a foot because they got some athlete's foot over there that ain't nothing like that shit that you go buy Tinactin at CVS for.
Oh, my God.
They got stuff that was coming out of Vietnam they called jungle rot.
Ooh.
That would take, like, layers of skin off of you. It was horrible. And guess what?
Wow.
Like Lamont said, you can't go to the doctor. You can't go to the hospital.
That's absolutely true, right?
Backed up for months before you get to see somebody. By that time, your little hand had been fell off, Skin diseases and all kinds. But this is what they want you to sign up for, because like you say, you paint that picture that it's going to be all this big old wonderful thing, and it's not. My son asked me, Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be a Marine like you. I was like, you don't. You don't, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But, what about the flag? And you don't want to, just crush your son's spirit like, man, fuck that flag. On the real. That flag, if you get killed over there, you have to argue with them motherfuckers to bury you with a flag on your casket. Come on, man. But you don't want to tell an 8-year-old that.
Right.
So we left in that position where, you want to say, but what if your son is not college material? What if you live in the heart of the hood and there is no other opportunities other than the service? Because, last time I checked, Harvard ain't coming to the hood.
No,
You know what I mean?
No, they're
you might
not.
have the best you might look forward to is community college some damn well.
Right.
But it is what it is. But so how do you tell somebody not to go when that's the only opportunity that there is? Gabrielle, answer that question for me.
How do you tell them not to go?
Yeah.
Well, hey, but if there's a will to do something, there's a way. I think that what you have to do very early on is instill in your child just to realize that there is a world greater than what's outside their front door. And I know that sounds a little overly idealistic, but I think you need to start laying out the options early as much as you possibly can. Once your child starts to become of age, 12, 13, 14, and even maybe before that, just kind of let them, just kind of sit them down and talk and explain, okay, this is the situation we're in. These are your surroundings, but what are you going to do with that? I mean, what are you thinking of doing, or what dreams do you have in life to get out of the situation you currently see yourself in? I mean, and that's kind of what my parents did with me. It was just like, do you see what's around you? Do you want to be like this? No? Okay, what are you going to do about it? So I think that you have to kind of give them the idea that there are options early on. And, if they do decide to go into the armed services, if they do decide to go in the military, find somebody that you trust who probably has served or who's knowledgeable about it so that they can give them the real deal about what it's like. And then if they still want to do it, then, you really can't, when your kids make a decision, especially once they reach the age of 18, not much else you can do about it. But I think that the only thing you can do is to keep them informed, let them know what options are out there. And even if you are living in the projects, I mean, there are things you can do. I mean, unfortunately, we're in a situation now where a lot of programs, a lot of programs are, going to be shut down. So that's going to get worse. But if you can get your kid involved in any type of activity, I mean, like my church, they do this thing where they take kids from certain neighborhoods and take them to different corporations and let them intern at 11, 12, 13 years old and just kind of give them a feel for what other people do and kind of give them, like, positions. So this person will take on the work of an accountant. That person will take on the work of a programmer. Just give them a desire for it early on so that they can see that there's something more than what they're immediately seeing every day, which is, whatever, drug dealing, hustling, whatever, that they see in front of their face every day. So the only answer to that is to give them their options early, make sure that they're not being brainwashed, because what they'll be taught in school is, give all your loyalty to that flag. Give all your loyalty to this country. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. This is what being American's about. I mean, they will put that in your kids early. It's your job to counteract that. So that's the only thing you can do.
Lamont.
Yes, sir.
Got a little bit different twist for you. Got a same general question, but a little bit different twist. You're a conscious brother. We all like to think that we know what's going on. We all like to think that, the same things that they trick our parents with, they can trick us with because, we have access to a little bit more information that our people may not have had back in the past. Right. How do you reconcile? Because I'm figuring that it's probably a few. How do you reconcile being conscious and being in the military?
Being conscious and being in the military? Whew, that's like an oxymoron right there. I mean, I can see you being in the military and then you're discovering your consciousness. And you have to deal with that. But to be conscious and think about going into the military, I can't think that. That's beyond the scope right there. Unless if you're a conscious individual and you're discovering who you are and where you came from and what your potential is, to go into the military is some sort of goal you're trying to reach as far as in the political field, as like a Colin Powell or something like that, to make a difference, and you taking that route. That's about the only way I can see a conscious individual enlisting. Now, if he's in the military and he becomes conscious, then you take advantage of the position you're in and learn all you can on that spectrum. So when you come out, you can teach the young brothers, okay, this is what they're going to tell you, and this is the real deal. You know, you're going to always have your defense up as far as what they're telling you. You know, you can obey the command or whatever, but inside you're like, okay, I know the game you're playing, but I play your game too. So that's how I see that. I mean, that's the only way I can figure a conscious person making it in the military. Now, and I'm not in the military, so, you know, that's just my opinion.
And I've been unconscious in the military and have, Lord has blessed me to become conscious later on in my life, so I can look back at that portion of my life and ask myself, what in the hell was I thinking? But the simple answer is I was working with the information that I had at that time, right? That being said, I got a real good friend of mine, a guy by the name of Siraj. Siraj was a congressional, it wasn't a Medal of Honor, it was like the third highest medal that, the United States gives out, because he was in Vietnam. His platoon and his company came under attack or something like that. He jumped up in the middle of the night in the dark. He basically went out into the machine gun fire and started firing off a bunch of flares and lit up the whole place so everybody could get themselves together, because they were shooting each other. White guys were shooting each other and all kinds of shit because didn't nobody know what was going on. Ain't no street lights out there where you fighting. You know what I mean? And basically, they were surrounded by the enemy, and the enemy had infiltrated, whatever. They had got inside of their basic defense perimeter, and they was basically in there murking people. And he got up and saved the whole platoon, and, the government gave him all these honors, and military gave him all these medals and all kinds of stuff like that, and he still ended up in the penitentiary, but that was a whole nother story. He had PTSD. Somebody messed with his brother. He popped a couple of guys. That kind of shit happened. But it was like all of that stuff that he did for the country. At his trial, he brought his medals. He had, his superior officers came in and testified, and they didn't give a damn. They still bust his head. He gave 38 years in the penitentiary. Of which he did every day of it. You know what I mean? Had psychologists came on and testified about post-traumatic stress disorder, but this was back in the 80s. This was before post-traumatic stress disorder was a thing. It was like AIDS was back then.
In the early 80s, right?
Yeah, there was no HIV. There was just AIDS, and it was, a gay disease and all that. Same thing with PTSD. They used to call it being shell-shocked, or what was it, war-torn or something like that, they used to call it, but there was no clinical definition of PTSD. So all of those psychiatrists and psychologists that got up there and said, hey, man, this dude is crazy because of what he went through in Vietnam. They didn't give a damn. Still bust his head, But like I said, that gets to the point of saying you can only work with the information that you are given. At that time, the information that we had before we enlisted into the service was minuscule as far as black consciousness is concerned. Yeah, we learned what we learned in school about Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. I'm old enough to remember the Civil Rights Movement. I was actually here when, the March on Washington, rolled around and, both Malcolm and Martin got killed. I was actually in existence at that time. I was young, but I knew what was going on. You see what I'm saying? But as far as black consciousness is concerned, didn't know nothing about that because of where I was from. So it's understandable for somebody back then to decide, okay, well, maybe the best option for me is to go to the military because I'm, not ready for college or whatever.
Right.
In today's society in 2014, I find it hard for an individual with access to the information that they have at their disposal to come to the conclusion that I need to somehow protect this country. Because one of the things that Siraj told me is where he ended up going sideways with the military was when they gave that order to, charge that machine gun nest. And you looking at a pile of bodies in front of this machine gun nest. But for somebody's bright idea is that we got to have that piece of ground right there where that machine gun is at. You know what I mean? And he's looking at his superior officer like, you want me to do what? Oh, no, bro. You got to come with a better explanation other than we need that piece of ground. Because what he had seen was us taking land, giving it back, taking land, giving it back. And I thought about that as I was going through my military training. I thought about that, and I was like, I was that same way. I wasn't serving during a time of war, but I was asking myself that same question. Why is it that I will be expected to follow any order that somebody gives me without question? When did I become so ungodly a person that I don't even care about my own existence because of what another man says? That was one of the reasons why, like I said, this question came up. Plus, looking at all of my compadres up there on the stage with me today, and I was looking at how successful these guys have become in life based upon the networking and the contacts that they made while they was in the service, and why don't the black soldiers have the same thing? A lot of black soldiers, like dead presidents, they end up going right back to the hood that they came from.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways, it's like them getting out of prison and going back home to mama's house. They just getting out of the service. That's the difference. But in any event, unless somebody else got something that they want to tail off that with, I want to shift gears. I want to go to the next topic. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that?
Just one thing that I wanted to just kind of point out. It kind of makes me, when you were talking about why would anybody in their right mind with an access to that information want to do that, it kind of makes me think of something that happened that I studied a while back. It was called the Milgram experiment, and it was basically this experiment where the doctor who was conducting the experiment was trying to just observe and study people's level of obedience to being given orders. So to make things, the reason why he did this is because he was trying to figure out why Nazis were so willing to take the orders of, the Third Reich and, of Hitler, to just exterminate these people who they didn't know and who had never done anything to them and to do unspeakable things to them. So basically, long story short, he had a bunch of different people in this room, and he hired a bunch of actors, and the actors were sitting behind a booth, and the people that he brought into the experiment were told to read questions to those actors, of course not knowing they were actors, and if they got the answer wrong, to hit a button and administer what they thought was an electric shock. So he studied each person to see who would continue to administer the shocks and whether or not they would feel any type of remorse, like, okay, I can't do this. This person is screaming in pain. I can't do this. I have to stop. But the person who was in charge of the study would just say, please continue. Please continue. He wouldn't force the participant or, say, oh, I'll do this if you don't hit the button. But he would just say, please continue. And he observed who continued with the experiment and who wouldn't. And it's funny, but the people who participated and continued with the experiment, it was kind of broken up along racial lines as to who continued to hit that button and who didn't. And I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, I guess it depends on your level of your ability to be conditioned and to follow orders blindly without questioning it. And there could be some argument for whether or not that's a genetic or cultural thing. That's kind of people. I'm trying not to say something like that, but in a way, yeah. It's funny because, some people are just, I guess, predisposed to just taking orders and to doing what they're told, even when some part of them should say morally this is not right. So it's just, I don't know.
It is what it is because, there have been studies that have also shown as children we are born with a certain amount of compassion in our hearts. And then any 25% of the population actually exhibit psychopathic behavior because that's what it is. That's psychopathic behavior.
Yeah, as a sociopath, right. You have no feeling, right.
You have no feeling. You have no empathy for anybody else. You don't care the fact that you basically electrocuting somebody, which is what that button did. What that button did was it supposedly administered a higher and higher dosage of electrical shock because they had like 10 questions that they would ask you. And for every one that you got wrong, the actual shock level was supposedly going up. And
Yep, that's right.
Okay, well, I shocked them one time, man. Come on, man. This is some bullshit, dog. Come on, don't do them people like that.
Right.
They start, getting happy with it. Oh, he missed the question. Oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
Supposedly electrocuting people. But like I said, that psychopathic behavior is learned behavior because you're not born like that. Because experiments have been done with children as young as 6 months that recognize, bad behavior and can differentiate between bad behavior and altruistic behavior. And children tend to gravitate and like altruistic behavior as opposed to just selfish behavior. But, that's a topic that we probably have to deal with that in our upcoming show too.
Okay.
The people of the ice versus the people of the sun, as the book was. But let's switch gears. Me and you, Gabby, was talking about a situation the other day in the room. And we said that we was going to deal with it. So, it's just free.
Do we have time?
Friday. Yeah, we don't really have time, but we're going to deal with it anyway for a few minutes.
Okay.
Let's talk about the swirl.
Okay.
And for those who don't know what the swirl is, that's basically interracial dating, interracial marriage, interracial relationships, period. Right? And I forget what the exact, I think it was the slave master meme. You know what I mean? What happens if your white husband wants to dress up like a slave and basically hold you in bondage and pretend like it was 1814 or some shit like that, and he wanted to do slave master stuff to you. Would you G for it? And and of course the conversation then took a right-hand turn into that's why we shouldn't mess with white people and whatever. But my position has always been sometimes you just basically you don't have a choice in who you love.
That's true. There's truth to that.
There are those white people out there that's going to be down for the cause when some of these black folks ain't. You see what I'm saying? There's going to be white folks out there that's going to pick up that same gun that black folks is going to drop and run. That's just the way it is. And, of course, it's going to be the other way around, too. But for the most part, you can't just throw them all in one bunch. Just like we scream and holler and say they shouldn't throw us all in one bunch, we shouldn't throw them all in one bunch either. You know what I mean? There's some riders out there that just happen to have pale skin and a lack of melanin. But the question that I want to ask is, does the swirl do lasting?
You know what? I'm sorry, say it again. There was a lot of background.
Does the swirl have lasting, significant damage to the black nation?
Does the swirl have what now? I'm so sorry.
Lasting, damaging relations to the black nation. Is it something that we ought to do?
That's a very big and broad question, and I hate to be vague and wishy-washy, but yes and no. And the reason why I'm saying yes and no is because, as you mentioned, it is entirely possible to have relationships with people of another race where you are loved, where you are nurtured, where you are supported, where that person respects you for the individual that you are, and you have a harmonious life, and there's none of this master-slave or demeaning, stereotypes or whatever that comes in. But it's just like everything else when you are a person of African descent in this country and in this world, you have to, you just don't know what you're dealing with. And it's unfortunate. I mean, if you keep your eyes open, like, for example, the woman in that meme that we were talking about, earlier this week, she had signs of her husband or her spouse, whoever he was, having some sort of authoritative or superior complex or idea of himself above her. I'm sure he made jokes. I'm sure he made little references, and, even in the article it said that, when she protested to doing this little master-slave reenactment, he said, "Oh, don't be ashamed of your culture," as if being a slave is the only part of African culture. But anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to say is I can only speak for myself, and every individual can only speak for themselves. And I think I saw a lot of people say, and I somewhat agree with this, there may very likely be a conflict with your consciousness and your need to find love or to build your community or to build your life with somebody outside of your race. If you say that you're conscious, you're basically saying that you're focused and that one of the primary, just the plan for your life is to do everything in the best interest of your people. And, I mean, a lot of people might argue that doesn't necessarily translate to your personal life. But if this is what you're saying you are about, then I can't really see why or how you can deviate from that and still reconcile that with your values. But at the same time, I mean, again, we're all human beings. What I can say is, me personally, let me just take this from a personal level. Went on a date with a Caucasian male once. Somebody nice, or seemed to be nice. We met at work. We go on a date, and he took me to a really nice restaurant, and we're sitting at the bar talking, and, just chit-chatting. And then I noticed some of the jokes come out, some of the, just some of the little, like the finger snapping and the girl and all that. And I was like, you don't have to talk to me that way. I don't talk that way, so I don't know why you're talking to me that way. So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed is that the hostess comes up, and she was ready to seat us at a table. And he was like, no, we're good here at the bar. And I'm like, so you don't want to sit at a table? You want to sit me here at the bar so you can get $5 appetizers all afternoon? But anyway, so that continued, and then what really got it was when all of a sudden his roommate showed up. His roommate shows up to the date, and he sits with us, and he's talking, and they're all chatting, and I'm thinking, okay, at some point you're going to go away, right, because we're having a date. Well, he stays there the whole time, and then he and his roommate start to ply me with drinks. They start buying me drinks and offering me this and that, and I'm like, no, I'm good with my one or two. I'm fine, thank you. But they keep offering, and at the end of the night, as the night goes on, and I'm still sipping on the one drink that I had, all of a sudden they start to try and convince me that I've had too much to drink and that I need to crash at their place. So right off the bat, I'm thinking, you took me out on a date, which was nice, and I'm not going to be overly picky, but you chose the option of sitting at the bar instead of sitting at a table, which I kind of question whether or not you would have done that from a woman of a different persuasion. 2, you let your roommate come around almost to check me out, it felt like. And if this is a real date, then why are you letting your friend hang around? And 3, you're trying to ply me with drinks and then trying to persuade me to come back to your place for what? With you and your roommate? For what?
You're drunk.
Exactly, right. So,
you need to lay down.
Right, yeah, I bet they wanted me, yeah. And I know I cannot color every individual with that same brush, but to me, that was my reason for saying, I just feel like I don't know, I won't always know what your motive is, and I don't know that you'll give me the same love, respect, protection, and value that you would of a woman of your own. That's why I don't do it.
Lamont, I got a question for you, bro.
Yes, sir.
In your estimation, which one is worse? A white woman with a brother or a white man with a sister?
Oh, Lord.
Which one is what?
Which one is worse?
Oh, God. Well, with me, the old school said both of them is terrible. But, man, neither one of them scenarios that you just gave me makes me want to raise my hand. I don't like either one of them. But, I have family who have married outside the race. So, I treat them with respect and everything. And I know they see my Facebook posts and whatnot, so I know they know me. But I still treat them with respect. But I can't wrap my head around it. How would it look for Dr. Umar Johnson to pull up and get out with a white chick? I can't see it. So if I'm saying I'm pro-black and I'm about my people, then I'm suspect if you see me pull up and on my arm is a white chick. I mean, you know, I don't hate them. You know, I do not hate white people, but I love my people, and I know I have to take a stand. You got to take a stand for something. So, you know, if my son was to fall in love with a Caucasian, I mean, that's my son. I'm gonna love him. He know where I stand. So, you know, when stuff hit the fan, he already know where I'm coming from. So ain't no need to come to me asking me for no advice or whatnot, because he already know where I'm coming from with this. So I can't help nobody that wants to do this. I'm sorry. Don't look at me hard, but it's just, you know, I can't do it. And to listen to your experience, Gabrielle, I mean, that's a scary thing, because you could have easily been set up right then for this roommate to come in, and you didn't know anything about it, but evidently he didn't look surprised. Well, you know, I wasn't there, but he wasn't all of that surprised that his roommate showed up. So that sounded like a setup to me, and that could have been very dangerous.
Yeah. But I didn't drink, so I kind of saw it coming. That's why I stopped drinking.
yeah. But I mean, but in either case, you know, it was 2 against 1. So really, you didn't have to be drinking once he got you outside, because you seen the video where, you know, this lady got abducted not too long ago. I mean, that was just 1-on-1. Here you had 2-on-1. That's a dangerous thing. But that could have been with anybody. It didn't matter if he was white or black. So I mean, that, you know, that bothers me, because, you know, that's a, you know, you my sister. I can't even fathom, you know, that happening to my daughter or something like that. So I mean, but, you know, I digress. Getting back, neither one would do me any good. I don't particularly care to see a brother with a white chick. I don't particularly care to see a white guy with a black chick, and because, you know, they introduce you to them, they automatically feel like they got to come at you like they black, and I don't like that. You know, don't come to me to my, hey, what's up, yo? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And I smile. I mean, be yourself, man. I mean, if you gonna come to me and, hey, how you doing? Come to me with, hey, how you doing? Don't come up to me and my, hey, what's up, yo? And trying to give me the soul shake. I mean, come on, bro. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Let me just kind of jump in for a second. Okay.
Sure.
On that same thread that we were talking about earlier this week, with the women and the man wanting to do the slave master thing. So somebody called themselves trying to come at me and basically said, so Gabby, because I responded to another person's comment where he was just like, oh, I always see the fine sisters with, you know, the white dudes. And I was like, well, now you know how we feel when we see you with Becky from the trailer park, you know? So I said that, and this one person decided to come at me and say, so what you're saying is you feel entitled to being with a black man. And I'm like, when did I say the word entitled, first of all? And second of all, what do you guys think of this idea that we somehow, in this day and age, we should not feel entitled to each other or feel entitled to having or to finding a black mate? Because I can't wrap my understanding around that. But what do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, entitled?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Wow.
Right.
Well, I look at it like this. That's absolutely true. That as a black woman or as a black man, that you should feel entitled to be a black man or a black woman. You know what I mean? Just like a panda bear is entitled to be with another panda bear and not a crab. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost natural, not entitled, natural.
Right. I didn't get that. I was like, what exactly are you getting at with that? But okay.
Weird.
All types, especially on Facebook. You know.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
My thing about this world has always been this. Like I said, you don't have, you know, sometimes a choice in who you love and who you don't love. You know, because sometimes shit happens and it just slipped up on you. Now you Becky from the trailer park is the one. You know what I mean? Start out like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, well.
She was supposed to be a late night hit, but hey, I done fell for it. She can make good matzo balls, whatever. But now she the one.
Wow.
But I always look at it like this: if you conscious, how are you going to take Becky to the Black Panther meeting?
Exactly. You can't do it.
You can't do it. You probably could, because you would be surprised at how understanding a lot of conscious brothers are. You know what I mean? Because the one thing that we do pride ourselves on, other than being conscious, is being intelligent. We know this shit happens.
But those same brothers will lose their mind when they see one of us with Matt or Bill, or you know what I'm saying? And
right.
Because y'all watching Scandal. Now y'all done lost your mind.
Especially if we on Facebook every day, or we on UI every day, and we like Whitey this and Whitey that and Whitey this, and we got a white person in our life. It's kind of a dichotomy. It's one of those things where there's a whole lot of other things that go into that. There's a lot of factors that play into why that is like that, but those factors are not readily apparent. What's readily apparent was that we was making plots to take over the United States yesterday. You know what I mean? You was all about killing Bill and Bob and Peggy over there yesterday, and today you with Becky. And a lot of times brothers and sisters don't realize just how much of an effect that peer pressure will have on them. Because if I feel like my wife, I can take my wife anywhere. I can take my wife amongst white people, I can take my wife amongst black people. She don't feel like
right.
You know what I mean? She can roll with the punches. But if my wife is Becky, I can't take her around my brothers because I got some Neanderthals in my family. They good people, but they gonna talk about Becky like Becky's a redheaded stepchild. They gonna talk about Becky to her face.
Yeah.
Because that's their level of understanding when it comes to interracial relationships.
Right.
Because out of my whole family, I mean, both sides, my mama's side and my father's side, I can't think one single interracial couple in my entire family. I mean, all my distant cousins, uncles, aunts, whatever. Now, it's some light, bright kids, I don't know where they came from.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? But for the most part, my whole family black. So for me to come in there with Becky, it's gonna be some shit. It's gonna be some shit just based upon their mentality and how they feel about white people. Because I got some stomped down. I can't say racist because they're not racist, because we know what racism means. But I got some prejudice family members. Let's put it like
militant.
That. You know what I mean? And they don't mean no harm, because look, if Becky can take it and Becky can dish it back out, she part of the family. You see what I'm saying? They don't mean no harm, but they're gonna talk about it.
Right.
They gonna, like we say up north, they're gonna jive on her all day long. Especially if she got a flat booty or a big old hook nose. Oh my God, this is gonna be on like a pot of neck bone.
Oh wow.
That's gonna be one of them Thanksgiving dinners that you're gonna have to videotape, because they're gonna be on her like white on her, basically.
Wow.
Be that as it may, So I look at it, like I said, from the aspect of just peer pressure. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're gonna have to act differently amongst your people if she's there. That you probably wouldn't act that same way if she wasn't, and vice versa. When you go around her people, for example, one of the reasons why I stay away from my son's school is because these are the friendliest white people in the world. All of them want to be, can I friend you on Facebook? No, partner, you probably don't want to do that. That's what I'm look at you. Because you know suburban me. You know the me that, this is a means to an end, bruh. You really don't know me. You on my Facebook, I got like 5 or 6 people on my Facebook friend request list, and I just ignore it. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
Don't even pay attention because you really
got
want
to
be my friend. You know what I mean? Not that I'm ashamed of you, or ashamed of who I am, but I know that your kids and my kids are good friends. They play together, they play sports together, they do whatever together. Go to school, sit next to each other, eat lunch, all that kind of shit. See what I'm saying? And I don't want to have to explain to my son why Jake's daddy won't let him come around me no more.
Right. Oh, wow.
Because Jake used to come over to the house and we might sit here and watch Hidden Colors. Everybody sit down and shut up. We watching Hidden Colors. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I bet he won't come back.
He ain't coming back. You see what I'm saying? So, but that being said, look, it is now 2:13,
Mm-hmm.
2:13, right? And with that, we're going to end this show, right? I thoroughly enjoyed myself because y'all was crazy. Both of y'all.
Likewise.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Likewise.
And so, starting next week, wrestling announcement, starting next week, we're going to move Real Talk back an hour. We're going to fall back with the fall season, just like the clock did. We're going to move back to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 1 p.m. on the East Coast and 4 o'clock in the morning in the Pacific Island, Kiwi and the Marianas Islands, et cetera, et cetera. In the Philippines, I think it's like 2 days from now or some shit like that. I forget how the time codes go. But in any event, we're gonna move the show back an hour. That way, hopefully, if everything works out, we can add more time and we can have more time to deal with some of the subjects that we deal with. That being said, of course, I want to thank Gabrielle. I want to thank Lamont for coming in and sitting in for our usual co-host. You know, you guys is welcome to the show. Y'all friends of the show. Y'all welcome anytime. Even if they're here, you're welcome anytime to come in and give them, you know, what you think. You know, and yeah, today was more of a, you know, laugh, joke type show. Next week we'll be back to our regular, you know, more serious sales.
All right.
And like I always say, the revolution is but it must be funded. So I urge everybody to go to urbanintellectuals.com/members, and for $24 a year, you can become a card-carrying member of Urban Intellectuals, or go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate, and you can give to your heart's content. And be sure that you visit urbanintellectuals.org and look at our new nonprofit site and see some of the things that we're trying to get done and some of the things that we are investing in. Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, by February 1st of 2015, we hope to have our own 24-hour-a-day radio show, real radio show on. So hopefully you will see more of us and more of our different contributors to our Urban Intellectuals radio site. And with that, I bid everybody adieu. Hope y'all have a glorious weekend and keep up the good work. Keep up the struggle, and remember, if you're not going forward, you're going back. And with that, I bid everybody peace.